Hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I am your host, as always, Nathan, and today I'm coming at you with the next video in my Big Ten team-by-team season review series. Today, for the first time, we're hitting on a more positive note, and that is the UCLA Bruins. Year one into a new regime, and there is plenty to talk about. But before we get into that, I am going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help out the channel if you did. And now with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started by talking about UCLA's 2024 football season. Your record was 5-7 overall. You were 3-6 in the Big Ten. You finished tied for 12th in the Big Ten with a couple of other teams. This season was more hopeful, in my opinion, than hopeless. Obviously, when you look at the season, Hawaii barely won that game, and I was completely out on this team after they barely beat Hawaii. Hawaii was not good last year. They were vehemently awful, to be honest with you. Just bad all around. I think they went 4-8 in a G5 conference, so not a great team all around. And you were barely better than them that day. So I was completely and utterly out on this team, and for 5 weeks, I was right to be out on that team. You got decimated by Indiana, LSU, Oregon, Penn State in back-to-back weeks, and had a surprisingly close game against Minnesota. And that was the game where I think the wheels started to turn a little bit, where Deshaun Foster settled in and started to show his stuff as a head coach and program builder. So that was the game that I think really turned it around. Getting the W on the East Coast at Rutgers was massive. Beating Nebraska when you were big underdogs in that game, I think you were like 9 or 10 point underdogs. That was a big win. But the biggest win of the season was upsetting Iowa. Now, you lose to Washington at Washington. Washington's not anything special this year. You look back, and that's maybe the game that you would look at and be like, oh, man, if we had played better in that game, we could have gotten to the bowl game. Home against USC, you could have won that game. I was rooting for you to win that game because I thought you were going to beat Fresno State, and then you could get the bowl eligibility. Unfortunately, that's not the way it worked out this season. But still, all things considered, hopeful rather than hopeless. My grade for this year is a little bit interesting, and it's a C-, okay? Because you didn't really beat your rivals, so to speak. You beat, Fresno State. I'm not sure if that's a rivalry game or not, but you're both in California. Maybe it is. I don't know. But the big rivalry game is obviously USC, and you lost that game, even though it was close. If you had won that game and made the bowl game, this probably goes from a C- to an A+, because you already exceeded any and all expectations that I had for this team. So you might be wondering, why is it a C-? Well, I mean, the first 6 games were truly tremendously bad. They were really, really bad. That was an F- season, and the second half of the year was like a B+ season. So you kind of average that out, and that's where you get to C-. However, you do currently have the highest grade of any team I've given it out for. All right? So you've got that going for you. All things considered, given the fact that you had G5 level talent on this team this year, and a first-time head coach, I believe, in Deshaun Foster, and there was a lot of growing pains with him specifically early on in the season in terms of how to game plan, in terms of how to be prepared to go places. So, yeah, there was a lot of learning this year, which is fine in year one of a rebuild with a brand new head coach. That's perfectly fine. UCLA, unlike a lot of programs that we've already talked about and that we're going to talk about in the next few videos, does have a relatively significantly higher ceiling than any of them because of the ability to recruit in your own backyard. You could make the argument LA and Southern California is the hottest hotbed for talent in the country right now. No, I don't count places like Brenton, Florida, where IMG Academy is. People aren't born there. They go there to be at IMG Academy. I don't count that as a hotbed for talent. And you also do have a relatively large consumer base in terms of fans and in terms of potential donors as well. So this could turn into you win some more games, get a little bit more talent, maybe they can get the NIL going, and then maybe you can really get the ball going into being a more consistent threat in the Big Ten or whatever conference you end up in if college football gets realigned, which I think it probably will be whenever the NCAA folds. But that is a conversation for some time in the future. So, what does this team look like going forward? Not necessarily this year, but going forward into the future. I think Deshaun Foster is the guy. I would have faith in Deshaun Foster. I think he is the guy that is going to turn UCLA into something it has not been in a very long time, and that is a consistent winning program. Again, I don't think you're going to be competing for Big Ten titles consistently. I don't think you're probably going to be, winning 9, 10, 11 games consistently or being a playoff contender consistently. However, I do believe that this could potentially be a program that does win 7, 8, maybe 9 games a year relatively consistently, depending upon what the out-of-conference looks like. So I think that there is a lot to be positive about for this team. Now, I haven't kept up with transfer portal and recruiting and stuff like that. I'll look at that later on after the draft, the NFL draft, that is, and when I start to do my whole preview for the Big Ten 2025 type of thing going on. I'll look into that more. But if you get yourself some talented players, especially on offense, I could see this program becoming pretty good pretty quickly. Then once you start to win games, once you've got that 8-4, 9-3 season under your belt, then you can turn to the president of UCLA and be like, hey, it's time to start, coughing up the big bucks to get some actual talent in here, some big time talent in here, and then maybe you can start winning going forward. But that's just me, and what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. To this point, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree with me at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section below. And now with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that's that I'll see you next time.